So first of all, we have to see some kind of a theory before we are digging in, and this is about fundamental value of an asset. Because this is a nice theoretical concept, so practically what is the value of a company? And at the end of the day, the value of a company depends on the set of the assets and how much money can we earn from this specific asset. So we could say that, yeah, if we have an agricultural land, we just have to find the similar agricultural land. What was the price when it was sold? But companies are much more unique than agricultural lands or houses and so on, or even lands can be the terroir matters sometimes, especially in winemaking. So mostly how we are trying to price in really simple assets like this land is that how much money can we earn from this from a foreseeable future. So okay, from a land we can say that okay, we are keeping this asset for 30 years and then we just have to sum this up. Obviously, there is a concept for time value of money, so we are not green economics. So obviously, we have to calculate an annuity from that one. So we have to take an interest rate, and after that, we just have to say that okay, from the first year, after the second year, third year, and so on until the 30th year, we are calculating the present values of all these rents, and then sum them up. And at the end of the day, we have just an annuity here because we have a finite flow of money in this case. Obviously, we can say that, yeah, but if there is a steady rate of growth here, in case of the rental fee, then we can compensate against inflation because it would be quite stupid to ask for the same amount of money during the whole time period. So usually, even in land leases, we can see that in the contract they are saying that okay, we have to compensate with the inflation, or sometimes they are trying to compensate also with the major agricultural price behind this land, and this is how they are trying to mitigate the risk. But in this simple case, we are just having a growth factor which should compensate against the inflation and sometimes some additional more. So if we have the same issue just now with US dollars, then we can say that without any present value calculation, we would just have from $100 revenues. We could say that this land worth like 3,000, but this is nonsensical because time value of money. So at the end of the day, this is just 900 and a bit more. We can say that it can be higher, obviously. Just in this case, it means that we are in an upward bubble. So if this is more, then we can say that this is a bubble because we cannot find cash flows, proper cash flows, which would suggest or which would underline that okay, this, let's say $3,000 valuation would hold because we cannot earn such amount of money. So we can ask for it. If we can sell it, then it's okay. But that's much more like an artifact, not a supported value. If we are adding growth factor, so in this case a 3% growth rate, then we can say that okay, this is increasing. So in many cases, if we are just checking real estate prices in Hungary or elsewhere, if we can see that okay, this is the price of this flat somewhere in the city, then we can check that okay, if we are using this flat for let's say 20 years before, maybe we don't have to demolish it, but after that we have to remodel and then so we need some additional investment. So if we are just running it for 20 years, then what will be the growth factor and also what is the discount rate where we can at least approximate this pricing. And therefore, fortunately, right now, it's really hard to find these factors because now we are completely in the skies, even in Szeged. So it was really hard to justify real estate prices in the past, but now it's obviously scarcity and location matters even more, and availability. So sometimes discounted cash flow valuation can be quite useless. So if we have bonds with fixed interest rate, the valuation is completely the same like before. So what matters here that the bond with this pair value of $100 will pay this 10% interest annually, and also at the same time the discount rate is only 5%. So at the end of the day, in each year they are paying this 10%, and then when it expires after 30 years, then they will repay also the capital or the fair value and also the last interest, and then we just have to sum it up, and then we can say that okay, this is the value of the bond. And actually this is how bond pricing works. So this is not just theory, this is practice. So we can pick any German, Hungarian, green bond, non-green bond, traditional bond, whatever bond, and we will see that until there is no sudden hysteria, or until they are not afraid of the company, until they are not afraid of the issuing country, so there are no additional risks added, no exogenous shocks are considered, then they are really close to the fair value. So bonds are simple assets. Obviously the shock can come usually from the underlying discount rate. So if discount rates are increasing, then this is when bond prices are falling. And this is when we can buy them cheaply at the end of the day, if we have money. Yep. Okay, but let's assume that we are not just renting things out, so we are trying to harvest corn, and in this case we have some revenues, we have some expenditures, so now we are running a proper company, not just utilizing assets and trying to evaluate them. So obviously, in this case, what matters is profitability of this business. So revenues will depend on how much corn can we make. So quantity, obviously the price of the underlying corn, and the expenditure, some of them will be fixed, so it doesn't matter that what we are doing here. And some of them will depend on the activity, so we need less fertilizer, more fertilizer, fuel, we need irrigation, maybe more, maybe less, it depends on the weather. We need definitely some machinery to cultivate them, to harvest them, and also we have to pay for the rental fee or lease. And what is here as well is the depreciation of the assets. So this is why it's also relevant for us. So all the equipment, the vehicle will depreciate, so the value will decrease, which is an artificial expenditure because we know that we don't have to pay this one. So there is no cash outflow related to this one. So at the end of the day, when we are creating such an artificial expenditure, it means that we can save taxes. Because you know that corporate income tax should be paid only what remains as a profit before tax. But since we have this artificial expenditure, then we have to pay less amount of taxes. So this is a saving for us. And also, if we are doing this business, sooner or later we should have capital revenues. So how much cash reserve do we accumulate during this procedure? Because if we were able to be and became profitable in the past, then somehow cash reserve had to be accumulated. So gain interest on this cash reserve can be relevant. If we are burning up our cash reserve, maybe this is not a good to run this enterprise at the end of the day. I had a really sad experience many years ago when we had to evaluate a logistical company where practically they lost their market. So they provided storaging and commercial services, and they had a huge robust cash reserve. They had no debt at all. Just competition opened next door with much better services, much better infrastructure, and suddenly they lost the majority of their customers and clients. So at the end of the day, when I was requested to evaluate this company, the 300 million forints was melted down to 30 million Hungarian forints, so practically they were bleeding out money completely, and I had to say that, okay guys, the profitability is negative for 2 years now. You did everything, you used up all your cash reserves, you don't have debt at least, but whenever we were forecasting their turnover, the turnovers were also converging towards negative numbers. So in this case, you have to say that that's all. You have to close it down so the operations will cease to exist. Then they were selling all the assets, and that was the end of the company. Yeah. Also, capital expenses. So obviously, if we have debt, then we must pay their interests. So because at the end of the day, debt here is funding our assets. If the assets are not useful enough to finance the interest rates of the funding costs, then why are we operating at all? So again, in this case, let's sell the assets, let's close down operations, let's go home. Also, financial lease payments. Financial lease is a really interesting funding feature. I will talk about it and we will study it later on, because it can provide us huge flexibility. So all in logistics, in aviation or in railway transportation and even road transportation, people are using this heavily, because this is how you can grow your fleet easily, or you can decrease your fleet easily also when demand diminishes. So capital expenses and revenues, obviously we have to consider them, because they can be key factors. And also this is where hedging for foreign exchange exposures will live as well. So there will be an additional yellow box here where all the derivatives where we're trying to mitigate risk will live. And then we have to estimate the earnings before interest, taxes, and depreciation. So EBITDA should be determined. And then after that, based on the discounted value of this EBITDA, and also the cash reserves in the last year, and also the assets, book value of the assets in the last year, should be calculated, the present value, and then together, and we have at least an approximation for fundamental value. Usually this approximation is a from to range. So we cannot say that, oh, this is the price exactly. Usually when we have to determine the price range for a customer, for a company in this case, when it's requested, they want to have some kind of a basis of negotiation. So in this case, they are always requesting some kind of a range which can be suitable. This is much more credible. So in this case, we have to test these parameters. And this must be always forward-looking. So we can see that for at least the next 5 years ahead. It could be more just, we are in the 2010s. And if we can look forward for 5 years, this is all completely enough. So we have to create a business plan. We have to check the business plan of the actual company. We have to understand how they are making money, because sometimes they can change their behavior completely. So once there was this company which was also in the logistic business, but mostly for 10 years, they were much more like a real estate developer. So they get this empty land, they build up the basic infrastructure, road, electricity, water, and everything was introduced to the plots. And then they built warehouses, they sold them. So practically, when I had to price them in, they had one warehouse and the roundabout and the road from this roundabout. And that was all the assets in their books. The rest of the lands were already sold. And after that, they started to operate as not as a developer, but practically as an operator. So they provide the storage places for external clients. And in this case, you are not able to use past values. You can use only what we can see that, okay, this is their asset right now, and based on their business plan and also external data, by cross-checking their business plan with the external data, then this is how much money they can earn during the next 5 years, possibly. So we have to check them, we have to stress, post the EBITDA, and also right now the discount rate is really simple, but at the end of the day we have to determine that what is the proper discount rate here, and this is the weighted average cost of capital, what you learned on corporate finance already. And in this case, we are also playing with that one. We can determine that what can be the most efficient capital structure for the company, if they are deviating from it and why they are doing it. So we can test it again and again to see that, okay, which one can be more efficient. Also, we can ask some questions. First of all, scaling up the customer base, this is highly relevant. So economics of scale doesn't matter where we are in economic history, in the Bronze Age or right now, economics of scale matters a lot. Because usually companies are operating on under narrow profit margins, or maybe right now they are happy that in the future they can, the market can be in recession or something wrong can happen. So they have to be prepared to operate under smaller margins. So operational margin is the difference between revenues and expenditures without depreciation. So that's why if we have big scale of operations, if we can increase or the list of our clients, if we can increase quantity somehow, then even if the margin is small as percentage, still we can earn a lot of money in dollars and euros, doesn't matter. So this is usually the trick. Especially if we are in a competitive market. If we are an oligopolistic market, now we can start playing that we are not so forced to scale up customer base, but still the problem is that if the customer base is narrow, then maybe unit costs will be so high that sooner or later it will kill our market completely. So we can find terrible examples, for example, in weapons manufacturing or even in car manufacturing. So usually in manufacturing business, then they have a really specified project or product, and all the research and development costs have to be put obviously on the airplanes, whatever, so on the final product. So this will be part of the final price tag. Also, they had to cover all the costs related to the establishment of the production lines, so all the testing, robots, and so on, software licenses. Somehow they have to consider all the developing steps, wages. So at the end of the day, all the development costs will be related to the final product price tag. And if you can see that, okay, now the customer scales down their request. So instead of selling 200 beautiful rockets for the army, now we can sell only 2 of them, then we are facing trouble. So this is what happens right now with the SLS program, where NASA had this great idea, or mostly the US Congress had this great idea to go back to the moon with the Ariane space program, and they were saying that, oh, we can do it cheaply. So let's take the space shuttle engines, literally the engines, so without much modification. So instead of 3 of them which were operating on the shuttle, let's put 4 on the back of the rocket. Let's take the shuttle solid rocket booster, so things on the side. Let's add 1 segment more, so now we have longer solid rocket boosters. Otherwise, the hardware is the same, so we are not doing much development here. Maybe they are introducing composites, but doesn't matter. So stuff is the same. So they stretched it. They added fuel tanks, which were completely the same. Even the color is the same. Fuel was also the same. Even the crawler thingy, which had to roll out for 3 miles, so 5 kilometers away or 6 kilometers away, that's the same. The painting was different, and also tubing was different, because at the end of the day it was not so same, because they had to spend $800 million for modifications. So the only new thing on the whole space launch system, rocket or platform, was the modification of the European ATV, which became the logistic module of this new spacecraft. So this is providing electricity, air, and all the stuff which is necessary to go to the moon and back and to survive this. And obviously on the top there is the usual Apollo-shaped spacecraft, which will eventually come back. So the final price tag with all the legacy hardwares is right now around somewhere between $2 billion and $3 billion. While one seat at SpaceX Falcon and also, on the top of the SpaceX Falcon 9 and in the Dragon spacecraft, for NASA to go on low Earth orbit is around $100 million. So we can see the difference in zeros and numbers, and yeah. So scaling up was a problem, because originally when Lockheed Martin got this contract for building the SLS, they had the idea that, oh, there will be 20 missions, even this platform will be used for long distance flights into the far edge of the solar system. And now we can see that maybe there will be a 5th launch, maybe there can be a 6th launch of all of this. So obviously the price tag increases further and further, because they are desperately trying to push all the development costs into the first 2 or 3 units which will be built. So this is always a disaster. It doesn't matter it's rockets or whatever. Next thing, modularization. It's also really interesting to see that when there is an infancy stage in any industries, people are trying to develop everything, software, hardware, everything from bottom to up. And usually we can see that when this industry starts to become adult, so now it's developed enough, then modularization starts to appear. So nowadays, nobody would like to develop everything for a laptop, so nobody develops the software, the operating software for a laptop. Nobody would like to develop the processor, because you can buy it from AMD or Intel. Nobody would like to develop even the graphics card from scratch. So usually you are just buying components, you are building them together, because now we have useful suppliers who were specializing on everything. So until you are not able to see this modularization in an industry, then we can see that the reason is because this market is really narrow. Northrop Grumman, or nowadays Northrop Grumman. So in the past, that was this company was called Orbital. They were trying to utilize modularization in 2010, from 2010 until 2014, and even nowadays they are trying to do this because they were saying that, oh, we would like to build a rocket to supply the International Space Station with only cargo. So nothing difficult, just cargo, because cargo can survive higher Gs. If it explodes, then it explodes. So yeah. So people are much more demanding than cargo. And in this case, they were buying engines from the Soviet lunar program. Somehow they were able to find it in Russia on shelves. They were buying fuel tanks from Ukraine. They were buying cargo spacecraft parts, or the pressurized part of this vehicle from Thales in Italy. And then they were integrating all the stuff together. And then on the third attempt, it exploded completely on the pad because of corrosion issues in the engine. So now they are flying with SpaceX because after that they turned towards Russian engines, but now due to sanctions they are not able to fly anymore. So yeah, so modularization, we can solve it sometimes, but just sometimes it can be also an issue. Okay, so the case study. Yeah, we have cats. You will see a lot of cats during this semester, but let's see. Commercial space business for economics. For economists, sorry. So, how can we determine the fundamental value for a commercial orbit launch service provider? Because right now the big question is that what will be the share price, the IPO price for SpaceX? They are the single company who is not into defense business, so everybody else, like Boeing, they are into defense sector, and that we don't want to fly with Boeing into space. Like last time, 2 people tried to do this, NASA astronauts, and they stuck at the International Space Station for half a year, which had to be a nice experience at the end of the day. And after that, SpaceX brought them home. Just Boeing is right now in low point. But they are manufacturing beautiful planes, which are not crashing anymore, hopefully. But also they are arms manufacturer. Also, the same thing is valid for Northrop Grumman. So mostly what we can see in the traditional or legacy manufacturers, everybody has a diversified business here. Only the new space, the commercial space business like Blue Origin, Rocket Lab, Arianespace is also legacy manufacturer because half of them is owned by Safran Engine, half of them is owned by Airbus, and they are on the business for 40 years now or more. So usually we have mixed companies. That's why SpaceX is quite special, because they are only launching stuff and they have satellite internet. So they have really simplified business model until yesterday or until last week, when they were announcing that they are acquiring XAI, which is ruining all my plans about for this semester, but we will ignore XAI because XAI is bleeding money. It was never profitable. So I don't know why they had to do this, but okay, so we will ignore it. Or if we have the IPO data and or valuation data, and our valuation data is better, then we can see that how XAI acquisition ruined their ability to raise equity. So let's go back to this. So how can we earn money here, and how can we determine value for companies here in this specific market? So mostly we can see that this is Earth. This is low Earth orbit. So we are talking about 300 kilometers, 500 at most. People are usually not going for 2000 with satellites at all. The International Space Station is also within this 300, 500 kilometers range. It's cheap to send cargo here, satellites here, and it's also really good because if anything fails, then it will fall back within 1 or 2 years, because still there is atmospheric drag, especially when the sun is more active, because it increases the atmosphere. It makes everything warmer, so satellites will decay, fall back, and after that they are not just accumulating and making space debris. So this is the big market. Geostationary orbits are much more like for defense agencies or 1 or 2 state-owned monopolies, where you have to build huge satellites. But in this case, you can see the whole planet from one specific point of view. So this is absolutely limited, and in this case, you have to move here more than 1 ton. Usually, one geostationary satellite is 2 tons, while here we are talking about some 100 kilograms. So there is a difference. So this is the big business here. After that, talking about Moon, Mars, Venus, Ceres, and so on, it's nice, theoretical concept, but you are making money here only when NASA, when ESA, or other space agencies have some kind of scientific program, and you have to launch a probe once in a decade or maybe 3 times in a decade. So unfortunately, right now, this is not a market for us. Moon. So right now, and during the last 5 years, NASA is trying to initiate this commercial moon project, where they are trying to utilize commercial services to move not people to the moon, but from a theoretical space station which is not built yet, so the Gateway space station, to the surface of the moon and back. So this is just people moving and also cargo moving. Contracts are there on the market, so SpaceX, Blue Origin, they only 2 of them get the contract at the end of the day. But this is still far from commercial operations. They are trying to push it, just right now NASA doesn't have the budget for that one. So still we are reduced to this plane of existence, to really close to the Earth. And how does it work? We are launching a rocket, bless you. Then the first stage of the rocket, so with all the big fuel tanks and most of the engines, will be dropped at, separated at 60 to 80 kilometers above ground level. So they are dropping it into the sea or somewhere else, usually not into a school. Sometimes it happens in some countries. And then the second stage will add additional velocity and pushes it up towards the designated location. And then they are reignite after separation of the cargo, reignite the second stage, and also it drops back to the atmosphere and burns up happily and doesn't make any debris. And after that, we can have satellites. Okay, so we can see that if we are focusing on the market, so heavy satellites, so these huge things are usually weather, communication, GPS, so Galileo or Beidou is the same, so GNSS satellites. But this market is narrow. Nowadays, nobody cares about them. So eventually you can have some businesses, but mostly small satellites are there because luckily modularization arrived to this specific segment. So nowadays you don't need specific space hardwares anymore. So you can go to the hardware store, you can buy motherboards and everything which can be useful for laptops or other things, and you can just build up your own satellites. Even there are satellite bus manufacturers like Rocket Lab, so half of their revenues are coming that they are building the satellite buses, which means that all the propulsion, communication, and so on is built in. And after that, you just have to add your sensor and your specific things to it. And otherwise, you don't have to develop again everything from scratch. You have to build only what you have or what you want to. And this one is big business, so there are companies only focusing on imaging services. In this case, they can give real-time feedback, for example, for agriculture, that you have to go out and get rid of some bugs on your field or fungi or something. Also imaging is happening in many cases that even municipalities are checking that, okay, building permits are considered by citizens, so they are overbuilding, underbuilding, what is happening here and there. So imaging has become really precise in this case. So what was considered in the past as a spy satellite now is just a commercial imaging company or corporation. It became also really cheap to make such sensors. Also weather satellite, communication, Internet of Things, phone, internet, now it's merged completely together. So the first company was Iridium, but I think the next slide will be about this one. Yeah. So Iridium tried to solve this problem at the first time during the late 90s, when they were saying that, okay, let's put internet in space. And they defaulted. But still, they had 66 operational satellites, 2.3 million subscribers. At the end of the day, their bandwidth was terrible. So it's we are talking about, they are calling this as internet, but we can see that this is hardly anything. So 300 kilobits per second and down. It's quite negligible, and this is the updated version. Also, to serve everything with 66 operational satellites, it meant that they had to go to higher planes, so far from Earth. So at the end of the day, the lag, so to wait until the data package goes up and then down, and you are joining to the internet, is really high. So high latency is their internet, but at least there is something. So if people are living in middle of nowhere, that was all their internet, what they were able to get. Also, they provided satellite phones, which was providing this service. So they had quasi-monopoly because even they defaulted once. And also they contributed a lot to early SpaceX because when they were refreshing their satellite constellation, they were using their services. At that time, they were launching 6 satellites at the same time, so already they were able to shrink down the sizes of their satellites, and with one launch, they were able to throw a lot of stuff into space. However, Musk realized that only launching things into space, so doing this stuff is not enough, because still the biggest bottleneck in the business is that there is not enough launch contracts on the market. So there are the legacy launch providers, so everybody from the space race. There is also India, who is selling with really cheap prices. There was Russia, okay, now they are not, but in the past they were as well. There is also Arianespace from Europe, which tries to become competitive. So the competition is quite high in the launch business, but at the end of the day, they were able to see the limits of growth. So it can be a great idea if you already have a rocket, a reliable rocket which can be partially reused, at least the first stage can be reused, to launch your own satellite constellation. And now this is why we have this huge boom of satellite constellations, because they were saying, at the first time people were saying that they are mad, but okay, Elon Musk is half crazy, sometimes half crazy here, sometimes the other half is crazy, doesn't matter. So when they were announcing that they were launching more than 1,000 satellites, where only 5,000 or 4,000 satellites existed in the space. So, and they would like to double it or multiply it. People were saying that, it's not possible. So right now, last time I checked it, so in August last year, they already had 7,551 operational satellites. Obviously, some of them are decaying and burns up in the atmosphere, but also at the same time, in each week, they are launching at least 60 of them. So it comes and goes, but in this case, they can also modernize the fleet. So older satellites are decaying, newer satellites are going up, and we can see that this is much more like a broadband internet. Now they are trying to motivate. So at the beginning, it was only for stationary customers, so you were able to put this size of the dish in your backyard, and after that you were able to get internet. After that, there are the mobile versions, so now you can put it on boat, put it on your mobile home. Now they are trying to ask airliners to add it on their airplanes. This is much better because in the past you had to track the satellite. You needed moving parts, but there is this thing called phased array antenna. So it means that you have a flat surface, but many small spikes around it. And digitally you can use all these spikes as one antenna, and you can follow everything without moving parts. Mostly this is physics, but this is how my friends described it to me. So you just need a flat surface with all the technologies behind it. And after that, you can make really cheap antennas for the satellite and also for your customers. And they were able to scale it up really fast. So after the second year, they had more than 1 million clients. Now they are above 7 million subscribers, which is really good because they don't have so they are providing the same package for all their clients. So it will be really simple and easy to model this business plan. So how it behaves, because So the next big thing and the current big thing is that with T-Mobile in the US, they are already providing direct or satellite to cell services. It means that even with my phone, I could get SMS, so text messages. So if I'm in the middle of nowhere, usually don't have any service, but with the satellite, it's only satellite, you can get at least low bandwidth data without any specialized chip or anything like this. And the next thing is the parallel internet, because right now, if I need data, then my laptop would send the data up to the Starlink satellite, then it would downlink it to a ground station, and then I can connect to the internet. But the current version has satellite-to-satellite connection with laser. And the laser is really good because it doesn't deteriorate with the distance so much. Also, it's harder to track because it's just emitting one photon forward and not radiation in all the directions, maybe focused radiation, but still goes some away. So at the end of the day, their satellites can talk to each other with lasers, with high bandwidth, and that's why they can bypass some of the physical infrastructure on the ground. And the current crazy thing, which was announced last week, we will see it later in the future, that data centers in space. Because obviously Amazon is in a big race with Starlink and all their stuff. already existing because Amazon is highly into cloud services. So it happened 2 decades ago when Amazon realized that, okay, mostly they are a company which sells things online. At the beginning it was books, and after that they started to broaden product range. But at the end of the day, they realized that, okay, but they are also selling server capacity because they were building up to support customers during Christmas times. But if there are no peak hours, then they can just lend or rent out these server capacities for other clients. So this is how Amazon Cloud Services became a thing, and it was a highly lucrative thing. So all these cloud services and data centers were coming from this heritage. And since obviously Jeff Bezos, who is behind Amazon, needed his own rocket company, then they were able to launch finally during last year, and second attempt was also able to land. So first attempt was disintegrating when they were trying to land with the first stage, but now they are trying to relaunch the recovered first stage again, and they would like to also put these communication satellites of their own. It was called Kuiper. Now they renamed it to Leo because Kuiper was quite a strange name. Anyway, just it was quite funny because one shareholder was able to force them to diversify their launch contracts. So right now they have to buy launches not just from Blue Origin, which is Jeff Bezos' own company, but from Arianespace and also from SpaceX. So even they had to go to that level to get some launch contracts and services, but that would be the major competition. Because obviously we have the European version of Starlink, which is OneWeb. It went also default once. So this is a British company. This was a British company. And they were launching satellites on Russian rockets, Russian Soyuz rockets from French Guyana. So they brought the rockets, built a launch site at the launch site of the European Space Agency in Kourou. And after that, they were doing this business until war happened, unfortunately. And usually at that time, they were acquired by Eutelsat, which is a European company which provides traditional satellite services everywhere on the continent and elsewhere. So, and nowadays nobody cares about them anymore, even if they have 630 operational satellites. But mostly they were focusing on business-to-business contracts. So they don't care about retail clients. They tried in the past, just they were pushed out from this market by Starlink. And also they are trying to move into direct-to-sell contract. They became so useless that even when the European Union tries to imagine new things on paper, they are completely forgetting about OneWeb, unfortunately. So they are trying to make their own Starlink, obviously, just not with OneWeb somehow. So right now, this is the big business. Internet of Things, phone, internet, communication, all together in one satellite mega constellation. So in this case, we just have to solve the following issues. First of all, low launch cadence. So we had to cut prices somehow to increase launch numbers, to increase our markets, and also we have to pivot. So many companies, Rocket Lab, which is funded by a New Zealandian guy. What is the name? Okay, right now I can't remember his name. But so it was funded originally in New Zealand, and they were building and developing a small launcher platform. Now they have relatively high launch cadence. So last year they were launching more than 20 times, which is high at their scale. But also they were starting to purchase many satellite manufacturers, so now this half of their revenues are coming from the satellite business and the other half is coming from launching actual stuff into space, and usually this is where companies are pivoting. So because there is a huge bottleneck in satellite manufacturing, that is where they can find also higher margins, so they are trying to build their own business this way. But still, kilogram to orbit price is quite high. So in 2000 and even in 2010, one launch was cost around 120 million US dollars. With the arrival of SpaceX, it went down to 50 million US dollars, but if you are using flight-proven first stage, so which went up and down several times, it can cut down to 30 million US dollars. So SpaceX at least was able to cut down 10 from the price tag, but that's all. So it's still quite expensive, just not so expensive anymore. And to solve this, to cut down price tags, in the case of expenditures, we have to deal with engine manufacturing. Unfortunately, until this day, everybody tries to develop everything for themselves. So you have to build up not just the manufacturing, but testing locations. You have to write all the softwares. You have to understand the physics behind this. So practically everything. And still, there was one company which was specializing only on engine manufacturing. That was Rocketdyne, Aerojet Rocketdyne. I think it's dead now. So they lost all their market. They were since the beginning of the Mercury program in the US. So they were completely a dinosaur. Just somehow they became so used to their markets and the fat public procurement processes and projects that they slept over the whole thing. So nobody invested into anything at this company, and now I think only the IPs are existing, and that's all. But still, the problem is that usually everybody develops engines for themselves. This is the most expensive part of the vehicle, obviously. Only Blue Origin is selling right now engines to external party, to United Launch Alliance, which is also a legacy provider. Later I will talk about them. Obviously, tanks must be manufactured, so fuel tanks and oxidizer tanks. Vehicle integration must be solved, so everything how they are interacting with each other and together, because usually vehicle became exploded because of lack of vehicle integration. Testing, software, launch equipment, fueling infrastructure, so everything must be built up and tested again and again. And in many cases, composite materials can be used, must be used. The problem with composite is that they can explode. I mean, if there is a fatigue, they are not just cracking like metal, then they are bursting. So you can see that, the vehicle is there and now it's not. So this is the key problem with composites. It's heavy, so it's really light, just it's not so reliable. Yeah. So if you have to think about this, obviously there is always a pointed top of the vehicle, just now rotated it by 90 degrees, and first stage is around 75% of all the expenditures. So this is the heaviest part, all the plumbing and tanks and everything is located there. Mostly it's built from aluminum lithium alloy or carbon composite, which is more expensive and it requires specialized hardware. So only Rocket Lab is enough crazy and have enough experience to build from composite. Firefly tries to do this, just usually they are exploding mid-launch. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's all. Who tries to build? SpaceX tried to, and after some explosions, even pre-testing phase, then they were saying that nope. Solid rocket boosters, you are doing it and you are using them if your main engines are not powerful enough. Or some companies are trying to say that if you would like to provide scale-up ability to your weak rocket, so Lockheed Martin and Boeing has this company or subsidiary called United Launch Alliance. There were some nasty spying, corporate spying between them in the 90s, and after that Pentagon forced them together that now you have to integrate your launching company. So that's why we have this most sophisticated called ULA. And ULA developed a new platform because the previous one was Atlas V, and Atlas V was using Russian engines, and you know the story. So right now it's not available for them. It was based on a deal made in the 90s that they were buying Russian engines, and in this case Russian engineers and people in the space business will stay in Russia and will not go to other bases. So the new Volcano rocket debuted 2 years ago, and they got the main engine from Blue Origin, which performs well. Just unfortunately, the solid rocket booster on the sides, they became a bit exploded. So now we have at least 2 launches where one of the nozzles mid-flight exploded. Luckily, the whole thing went to orbit, so that was no problem at the end of the day. Just even people in the Pentagon became a bit anxious about this. And usually they are buying everything because they have infinite money from taxpayers. But even at their level, they were unhappy that things became exploded here and there, even if it's manufactured nowadays by Northrop Grumman. Yeah, so this is the expensive part. Engines are the most expensive part, so we can see that usually their price is around 10 to 20 million US dollars or euros, doesn't matter in this case. Second stages are always containing only one engine, and usually the second stage has the cost of 25%. So it's less complex, but usually this is where all the problems are happening. So Astra Space, which was trying to enter also in the small satellite launch business, failed because none of their second stages were igniting or not malfunctioning. So mostly when they're not, first stages were not exploding, then the second stage was mishapping. So they were failing after 6 failed launch attempts. So mostly everybody tries to focus to solve this problem, and somehow after that they don't have resources for the second stage. Also in this case, speed, acceleration and everything is so fast and so high that any manufacturing mistake can be unforgiving, unfortunately in this case. But at least this is cheap to manufacture. And after that, behind the pointy top, so there is the fairing, which provides our aerodynamic coverage for the cargo, and then this is the cargo, which can be anything. We don't care about this, just release it. So this thing is ejected around 80 kilometers. So the speed of the first stage, usually top speed is 5 Mach. So it's a lot, but not so much. So in this case, we can, at least now 3 companies can land propulsively. The first stage, so SpaceX did this 500 times now, so they have the experience. Last year, Blue Origin was able to do this once. And also there is a Chinese company which was really close to it, just after that they dropped it and exploded. But China is close to solve also, both in private and both in public sector. Even, last week, Long March 10 first stage was hovering above the sea. So it's really close to much. So, for us, what matters that in our study, we will say that, okay, let's recover the first stage, it will land. This is an engineering issue. We don't care about this. This will land. We will have some probabilities of success and a learning curve for the next 5 years ahead. What we have to say that we have to determine what kind of an engine we want to use. This will determine what kind of fuel we have to use. And also we have to decide that aluminum or fancy carbon composite should be used. And then second stage will be expandable. In this case, the recovery is quite impossible because of really high speed. So if you are recovering this one, then you have to go with a higher speeds than 20 Mach and not burn up in the atmosphere. So Starship is trying to solve this, and they are really close to this. But even we were able to see really nice explosions 2 years ago from them, or even last year. So that one is hard, so we don't care about this, especially that it's relatively cheap. As a fuel, we can play with hydrogen, which is energy rich, and we don't have to carry a lot from this one. Just the problem is that it's absolutely corrosive. It's leaking everywhere. So last week, even if we were traveling to Florida to watch maybe SLS to fly, I was quite skeptical because since they are using space shuttle legacy engines and fuel, space shuttles were never able to fly in time. So since the 1981, there was maybe no launch which was launching at a specific time because it was always leaking, something was always happening. So it's quite useless, and we can say that liquid hydrogen not just corrosive and leaky, but also we have to keep it in really low temperature, so it's minus 250 something Celsius. In the case of kerosene, what you can put into airliners, okay, this one is a bit more cleaner, so RP1, rocket propellant 1, is a more refined version of kerosene. Still not so cold. You can still cool it down to make it more denser, and you can fit more into your tanks, but otherwise less energy dense. It can create dirt in the engine, so you have to clean the injector heads, but this is again an engineering issue. So within a month you can clear everything out and you can put it back into the pad as it happens in SpaceX. Oh, nowadays this is the fancy stuff. Liquid methane, everybody tries to build this and use this. So not just SpaceX, but all the Chinese private company, public companies, or the Chinese states, so the Long March 10, they are using it, and everybody tries to use it because it's energy dense, because liquid methane is practically one coal molecule and four hydrogen molecules, which means that still you are burning mostly hydrogen, and you are creating also carbon dioxide with one coal atom. So it's energy dense, way better than the kerosene. Also, it's quite cool because 160 Celsius is the operational temperature, minus, but where you have to store it. But it's not corrosive. It's practically natural gas, just extra steps. But the problem is that it's leaky, so it's still leaking everywhere. We were able to see also beautiful explosions during SpaceX tests in the past, because if everything cracks, then it's just moving out, but it will go explosion. So, yeah. So, old space. So, old space, what you can see here, all this already mentioned, more previously mentioned legacy contractors, which are coming from weapons manufacturing, from airline business. So we can see here Boeing, Lockheed Martin, Northrop Grumman in the US, Airbus, Arianespace, Safran, Leonardo in Europe, Rostec in Russia, ISRO in India, Mitsubishi Heavy Industries, which makes rockets for Japan, Sierra Space, which is in the US and not flying, but they have a fancy shuttle design which should fly always in the next year. I don't know which one will happen, Hungarian Euro adoption or their shuttle will fly. they even got NASA funding, so they should fly. Somehow they don't want to. And also there is a Chinese company. So they are from the traditional aviation and defense sector. And mostly what they get, they are fancy public money. So they get this cost plus award fee business model, which means that space agency orders a launch vehicle, then they are buying it, and doesn't matter that maybe development costs are increasing, or the unit price of the launch vehicle is increasing. At the end of the day, the space agency, like with NASA, will buy it, and doesn't matter what is the delay, what is the cost overrun, taxpayers will cover it. So, yeah. So usually what happens here that at the end of the day, kilogram to low Earth orbit fees will increasing and they will be excessive. So that's why after the explosion of the Columbia shuttle in 2003, NASA decided that maybe they should introduce a new model. So they created the Space Act in 2006. So it was even the Bush administration. Then during the Obama administration, NASA was able to create the commercial resupply service contracts, which meant that if you are putting enough money on the table, like 400 million US dollars, then you can get the same amount of money from NASA as a venture capital investment. That was a seed funding investment. Then you can get also some consultational services, so they can help you in the development. But at the end of the day, you have to solve the construction of your rocket on your own, from your own money. And you will own the rocket, you will own the cargo vehicle, and you will get only a specific amount of launch contracts from NASA. You can get, and within this specific launch contracts from NASA, obviously you have to deliver some tonnage to the International Space Station with these numbers. And also you will get fixed costs, fixed revenues. So they are saying that, okay, initially it was like 100 million or something. Later on we will see the numbers. So some 100 million US dollars if you are delivering the cargo. If not, then you don't get payment at all. So until then, New Space always had beautiful presentation, mock-ups, PDFs, everything. Everybody has big mouths that, I can revolutionize everything, and after that nobody did anything, as usual. So in this case, SpaceX was selected at the end of the day because the fourth launch attempt, Falcon 1, was not exploding, not because of Musk, because he was hiring Gwyneth Paltrow, who is an excellent engineer and manager. She was working at Lockheed Martin before, and practically she is the head of SpaceX nowadays. So since 2006, so since long time ago. And another company which was selected was Orbital. Then it was fusioning with Orbital ATK. Then they were acquired by Northrop Grumman. So nowadays Northrop Grumman is in the new space business, even if they are legacy manufacturers in many places. But after that, there was this huge boom of companies. So Blue Origin, this is Jeff Bezos, the Amazon guy company. Rocket Lab, this is Peter Beck, the New Zealandian guy's company. This is Virgin Galactic, which is the Richard Branson's company, who has all the different Virgin companies. He had Virgin Orbit for launching cargo or satellites into space, but it defaulted and now it's ceased to exist. There is Firefly, PLD Space in Spain, Relativity Space in the US, but I have no idea what they are doing right now because originally they wanted to 3D print the whole rocket. They did it, it exploded, and now they are doing something. Just always different stuff. Stoke Space, They developed the second stage, and still we are waiting for initial launch. ABL Space, this is again European. Astra Space, they defaulted after 6 failure, but still existing, just they were kicked out from Nasdaq stock exchange. Galactic Energy, I think this is a Chinese company. OneSpace is also another Chinese company. Orbex, this is a UK company, and this is defaulting right now because they were running out of money, even if they have practically a finished rocket. So in Scotland. Rocket Factory Augsburg, they are nice people. All the engineers were coming from automotive sector, and they are trying to build rockets from automotive components. So not from space hardware, but from well-established manufacturers' hardwares. Skyroot, this is a UK company, and it's also defaulting and coming back. So sometimes they are in default, sometimes not. And in this case, they are just trying to get this fixed term contracts when you get some numbers of launches from this agency, and then you have to survive from this one. So all the cost overruns and all the risks are absorbed by the firm. But in this case, you can use your platform for other purposes. So you are not forced to, this is not a monopoly that only you can serve the space agency. Once you develop the rocket, you have to serve them, but also you can serve other clients. So this should be the key concept here. And after that, you can see all the timeline of the commercially supplied services. We can see it here that, they got 1.6 billion US dollar for 12 launches. And after that, it was expanded more. Also, Orbital, ATK, they got more money for less amount of launches, and it was expanded as well. Then, after that, commercial proof program started in 2011 because after the retirement of the shuttle, and obviously after some delays in 2020, SpaceX was able to use their or introduce their Crew Dragon because they were just modifying the old cargo vehicle a lot to accommodate humans into it, and now they are both more than 20 something launches. Boeing did the same thing. First time when they were reaching orbit, the computers was thinking that they arrived to the International Space Station, so it was using up instantaneously all the fuel, so it was falling back. Second attempt was able to dock in automatically. So for the third attempt in 2024, they were launching 2 astronauts in the demo mission. Then they were hardly arriving to the International Space Station because of engine failures. Lots of engine failures, and then NASA told them that okay, you have to stay at the International Space Station, so they dropped down the Starliner autonomously. It was able to land, so at the end of the day, that was not a disaster. Just after that, NASA told Boeing that you should get 120 million US dollar for this delivery, but we are not paying anything for you, so they lost a lot of money on this one. So now we are at the 4th launch attempt this year, when again autonomously Starliner should dock to the International Space Station, maybe intact, and also come back. So this is a classic Boeing nightmare, what they are doing, unfortunately, during this decade. So this is the Falcon 9 first stage, second stage, and this is where the people are going into. Yeah. Oh my god. Okay, later on I will talk about them. Yeah. So this is what we can work with. So there are all the platforms from the traditional, from the commercial space businesses, and we can see that do we need solid rocket boosters or not. Modern vehicles don't need them, only the old ones, because at that time nobody cared about cost or usability at all. So our task should be that we are modeling Ariane Space, which is a European company located in France, It's owned by Airbus and Safran engines. Safran engines are manufacturing jet engines for airplanes and rockets. And in this case, we are providing, and this company actually provides long services for European Space Agency countries, so many European countries and also Canada. And the old Ariane 5 was retired. Now we have the Ariane 6. It was flying even last week, so we have beautiful videos on the internet about this. The problem is that originally they wanted to have a price tag of 70 million euros. Now it's a bit higher, again, because this is not reusable at all. So our task is to cut these expenditures down by a lot. So practically you have just to combine different engines which are listed in the case study with the different price tags, with things in it, and then with the probabilities provided also by the case study, we will see what will happen with pricing and after that with corporate value. So right now it can be scary what to do, but after that I will help you during this procedure because you don't have to be an engineer still. This is rocket science for economists. So, and we don't care about human transportation because they are needed. They want to survive everything, so we don't care about them. We only focusing on cargo and how can we solve this one and how can we become cheap. So the objective here is to cut down prices at least under 60 million euros because this is how we can have full capacity in our launch manifest. This is all the list of visa countries, even Hungary is there. And these are all the engines which are available on the market. now Raptor 2 starts to become obsolete because now Raptor 3 is new stuff that we don't have empirical data about the reliability, so still Raptor 2 will be kept there. So we can choose between Merlin 1D. In this case, you have to buy it for US dollars, so this will create foreign exchanges. Or there is the Legacy Vulcan 2.1, which is the same what was flying in Ariane 5. Just now a lot of 3D printed components are added, so it's lighter by 1/3 of the original hardware. And many things which were manufactured precisely by hand and put together, now we just print it. You don't have to manufacture them by hand anymore. There is also the Russian engine, the RD-180, which is using kerosene. There is the Jeff Bezos Blue Energy 4, which is also on the market. This is using methane. And also there is the European Prometheus engine, which is always getting some kind of a funding from the ESA and from the European Commission, just never enough. And it will be always finished during the next year. But this should be a landing. So mostly the problem of propulsive landing is that rocket engines or jet engines as well prefer to operate around 90% of their performance. Because in this case they have enough cooling and they are powerful enough. So if you would like to slow them down, then usually they are braking. So this is the engineering hardware, and you have to keep cooling, you have to provide them fuel and so on because of all their feedback loops built into the system. As an economist, we don't have to care about this. This is an engineering issue, so for us all of them can land. But obviously we have this probability. So probability of rapid unscheduled disassembly in the first year is 67%. And then after that, during the second year is 44%, then 7%, and so on. So after that, it will be flattening out. This is the empirical data from SpaceX. So how they were able to come out with ideas to landing with the first stage. Obviously, for Merlin 1D, we don't have to care about this because this is already solved. so their engine can throttle down to 60% and then landing happily on their legs. So, I mean the rocket's legs, not on own. We don't need solid rocket boosters. We can buy it. It's quite expensive, so it's 9 million euros. That's why we don't want to buy it. Northrop Grumman tried to build a whole rocket from solid components, but it has a risk exploding. So even Pentagon told them that even if the price tag is around 40 million US dollars, it's a bit scary because once you are igniting a solid rocket booster, you are not able to stop it. It will go whatever it happens with it. So, you don't want to be near to them, and this is when they started to explode the lower part, and now they have this tendency to continue this, and this will be finished very closely because propellants, I told about them. Again, we have defined quantity, defined price, so we don't have to care about any other features. We don't have to care about oxygen because this can be manufactured on site from electricity. In case of body, I recommend aluminum. You can use also carbon composite, just this one is absolutely expensive. And reusability. So reusability for the first stage, it can be solved. In the case study, we are using 10 times the first stage. Nowadays, SpaceX flies with even higher numbers than 30. So I think the oldest one is 35 or 38 with first stages, which means that you don't have to manufacture as much engines, first stages, and so on. So we can save a lot of money by not manufacturing everything from scratch again and again and throwing them away after 6 minutes. Second stage, we don't care about them. And again, this is relatively reliable. Obviously, there can be problems when after successful landing leg collapsed and then it went into explosion, or sometimes the grid fins which were directing them down, it were stuck and then it started to roll. So accidents can happen, but otherwise they are quite reliable. So at the end of the day, this is our potential market. If we are able to cut down prices, then launch numbers can be increased. So this is our potential market. So next week we will doing the design and modeling profit and loss statement, and after that we will do valuation and so on. So this is what we have to deal with.